Hey everyone, today I wanted to do something a little bit different and walk you through a project that I'm currently working on. So I am currently making this blanket right here, which is called the Burrow Blanket, out of the official Harry Potter crochet pattern book. I believe they also have one for knitting, but I am not great at knitting, so I'll stick to what I know and do crochet. I'm super excited that I was able to pick this book up. I got it off that website that starts with an A because it was about $10 cheaper than what it was for me locally in stores. So I went that route. But it's so far, I really like the book. I think it's working up, like the pattern's relatively easy to read. I did have some questions that I was able to get some help from on a very helpful group that I am in. And so they were able to help me figure out what was at the end of one of the patterns. But I wanted to show you this blanket up close, what it's going to look like. So it calls for 6 different colors, and then you stitch them together. So I'm familiar with making granny squares, but I made like one big granny square into a blanket once, so this is new for me to make these individual small ones and then stitch them together. I figured this would be a really good one to start out with because I'm still learning to read patterns. That's something I started this year, and so far so good. I've made a lot of really cute things, but this will be the first big project I've worked on. So this one is skill level easy, and it's going to measure, hopefully, if my stitches are tight enough or loose enough for that matter, because I do stitch a little tight. It'll be 60 inches in length or 152.5 centimeters, and the width is 52 inches or 132 centimeters. And it calls for 6 different colors of yarn in a lightweight. So yeah, I'm excited to get this finished, but I wanted to show you some of the granny squares I've made. I'm kind of working in one color at a time. So it tells you to make between 30 and 35 granny squares for each color. And so here I have started that. So these granny squares have been blocked. I've not sewn in my edges, but they've been blocked, so they look, nice and flat. And then these are ones that I have finished recently, and so you can see they're kind of curved up a little bit, not as nice. So blocking is also a new thing that I've learned this year. So the act of blocking is basically you get the piece wet. Excuse me, I got the hiccups this morning. You get the piece wet, and then you stretch it out using some type of, they call them blocking boards, but you can do it without one. I've seen a lot of people use, like, if they have pegboard in their office, they'll use the pegboard hooks to stretch it out. I did purchase an inexpensive blocking board, but basically you wet this down and then you dry it off a little bit so that it's not like dripping wet. And then you take the piece and you stretch all 4 corners, and sometimes even on the side if you need to, if it's a bigger piece and you don't want it to dip on the edges. But if you stretch it out and let it dry completely, it'll dry really nice and flat. And then when you're working on joining these together, as you can see, let me move my strings, but the corners of the non-blocked pieces, this one over here, don't line up very well. I mean, obviously you can still get there, you can count your stitches and just make sure it lines up, but I think for me it's going to be a lot easier to attach them when they've been blocked because, see, these two, they match up together a lot easier. So when you're working on a project like this, one thing that's you really want to be aware of is your stitch tension. So I have a habit of stitching pretty tight, but you want to make sure that your stitches are fairly uniform. And you can see mine are not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but they're relatively close, so it's going to be pretty easy to stitch these together. Because what you're wanting to make sure is that one isn't, say, 4 inches, and then you stitch the other one too loose and it's 5 inches. So you want them to be relatively close to the same, like, they're not going to be perfectly exact because we are not machines. We are human and we make mistakes, and that's okay. But you want to make sure that they're relatively close so that when you're stitching them together, you don't have weird lines in between them. So you want a crisper line. So like when you're looking at the pattern here, you can see that all of them, they form a line with that stitch that combines them. So you want to make sure that all of your granny squares are relatively the same size so that that line is as straight as possible. But yeah, I am super excited to work on this project, and I wanted to share with everyone. Let me know if you've done any projects in this book. After I get through the burrow blanket, I really want to be ambitious and try the sorting hat. I'm really excited to see what it looks like, so fingers crossed that I can get through that. But I love all of the patterns in this book. I think it'll be fun to work my way through it, and it'd be nice to complete a couple, you know, throughout the year, and then I can build a nice display behind my desk that I'm working at here to kind of show off all the different pieces. But this is actually going to go, I'm going to use the burrow blanket. That's going to be a blanket that I use in my living room to snuggle up in while I'm reading or crocheting. So I'm really excited to get that one finished. But yeah, let me know if you've completed any projects in this book. I'd love to see them, so feel free to tag me, and have a great rest of your day.